Are you the hero from the screen? The question, delicate as a moth's wing, fluttered through the twilight air, carried by a voice trembling with both fear and hope. Lila, a girl sculpted by hardship, stood before Keanu Reeves, her bald head as a bold canvas of courage, her eyes twin flames defying the dark. In her hands, she clutched a doll, its frayed stitches a mirror to her own stubborn resilience. Keanu, a man who'd weathered his own storms, knelt on the cracked pavement, his presence a quiet strength against the city's chaos. "I'm just a guy who keeps going," he said, his voice a gravelly whisper, steady as a heartbeat. Yet to Lila, he was more, a constellation lighting her endless night, a promise that hope could outshine despair. Their encounter, a fleeting stitch in the urban sprawl's wild tapestry, whispered a daring truth. Can one act of kindness rewrite a shattered story? Watch the full story to see their journey unfold. And if it moves you, subscribe for more tales of quiet courage. Keanu Reeves stepped out of a small, unassuming motorcycle repair shop in Los Angeles, wiping his hands clean of grease with an old rag. The sun was climbing high, casting a warm glow over the street, but Keanu barely noticed. His mind was still wrapped up in the vintage motorcycle he had spent the morning fixing, a classic model he had painstakingly restored over several months. It was a labor of love, a way to escape the noise of Hollywood and the constant pressure of fame. In this quiet corner of the city, he was just a guy who loved motorcycles. As he walked down the street, his thoughts still lingering on the bike, he suddenly felt a light tug on the sleeve of his leather jacket. Startled, he looked down and saw a frail, gaunt little girl clinging tightly to his arm. She was incredibly thin, her head bald, and her large, round eyes reflected a mix of fear and hope. For a moment, Keanu froze, unsure of what to do. The girl's grip tightened, and she swayed slightly, as if struggling to stay on her feet. "Hey, are you okay?" Keanu asked gently, crouching down to meet her at eye level. His voice was soft, the calm tone he often used when comforting someone in need. Before the girl could answer, a loud crash echoed from the nearby convenience store. A stack of canned goods had toppled over, sending cans rolling across the sidewalk. The store owner, a middle-aged man with a perpetually grumpy expression, stormed out, his face red with anger. "You again," he shouted, pointing at the girl. "I've told you 100 times. Stay away from my store." The girl flinched, releasing Keanu's sleeve and stepping back. Her eyes darted between the furious owner and the mess on the ground. Keanu, sensing her fear, stood up and stepped forward, positioning himself between the girl and the man. "Hold on," he said, raising a hand. "It was just an accident. I'll clean it up." The store owner's eyes widened as he recognized Keanu. His anger faltered, replaced by a mixture of surprise and embarrassment. Mr. Reeves, I didn't realize, this kid is always hanging around and..." Keanu cut him off with a small, understanding smile. "It's okay. Let me take care of this." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a few bills, and handed them to the man. "This should cover the trouble. And a little extra for your patience." The store owner hesitated, then took the money with a nod. "Yeah, all right. Thanks." He glanced at the girl one last time, his expression softening slightly before he turned and went back inside. Keanu crouched down again, meeting the girl's gaze. She was looking at him with a mix of awe and confusion. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice so soft it was almost inaudible. "Don't mention it," Keanu replied. "What's your name?" "Lila," the girl said, her eyes still wide. "Well, Lila, are you hungry? How about we grab something to eat?" Lila shook her head, but her stomach betrayed her with a small growl. Keanu chuckled. "Come on, let's get you some food, my treat." He led her to a nearby food truck, buying her a sandwich and a bottle of water. As they sat on a bench, Lila took small bites, occasionally glancing at Keanu, as if trying to figure him out. "You're the guy from the movies, right?" she finally asked. "The one who's always helping people?" Keanu smiled. "You could say that, but today, I'm just Keanu. What about you? What's your story?" Lila hesitated, then pointed down the street. "I live at the community center over there, with Miss Mary." Keanu's expression shifted slightly. He knew the place, a small, underfunded center that took in kids with nowhere else to go. He had quietly donated to it for years, though he never wanted anyone to know. "Is that so?" he said, keeping his tone casual. "So what are you doing out here all by yourself?" Lila looked down at her sandwich. "I'm trying to help. I need medicine, but it's too expensive, and Miss Mary can't afford it." Keanu's heart tightened. He noticed the dark circles under her eyes and her unusually pale skin. "Are you sick, Lila?" She nodded, pulling up her sleeve to reveal a troubling bruise on her arm. "The doctor said it's cancer, but they can't help without money." Keanu took a deep breath, his mind racing. He had seen hardship before, but this was different. This was a child, fighting for her life all alone. He couldn't turn his back on her. "Come on," he said, standing up. "I'll take you back to the center. I'll talk to Miss Mary and see what we can do." As they walked, Lila slipped her small hand into his, holding on tightly as if he were her lifeline. Keanu didn't pull away. Instead, he gave her hand a gentle squeeze, silently promising that he wouldn't let her face this alone. After ensuring Lila was safe at the community center, Keanu paused in the dimly lit hallway. The yellow paint on the walls was peeling, a sign of neglect. He decided to visit Ms. Mary, the center's manager, a woman with silver-streaked hair and weary but resilient eyes. Keanu had known her for years, quietly funding the center without ever telling her. They sat in her cluttered office, surrounded by stacks of paperwork and faded photos, talking about Lila's fragile condition. "She's a fighter," Ms. Mary said, her voice tinged with sorrow as she leaned back in her chair. "But her illness is relentless. We've exhausted every option here. The doctors warned that without intensive treatment soon, she won't last much longer." Keanu listened, hands buried in his jacket pockets, fingers fidgeting with his motorcycle key. He'd heard such stories too often, people abandoned by a broken system. But Lila's bright eyes and quiet strength made this personal. "Is there no other way?" Keanu asked, his tone calm but firm. "Charities, programs?" Ms. Mary shook her head, her hands clasped tightly in frustration. "We've tried it all. The waiting lists are endless, and Lila's running out of time." She trailed off, but the unspoken truth hung heavy. Keanu felt a pang of responsibility stir within him. He wasn't new to struggle, but this time, he couldn't just walk away. "I'll figure something out," he promised, rising from his seat. "I'll return tomorrow. Please look after her." Outside, night had fallen, the streetlights casting weak glows on the empty road. He rode home on his motorcycle, the cold air biting his face, but his mind stayed on Lila. He had money to spare, yet he knew it couldn't always buy what mattered most: time. Her shy smile lingered in his thoughts. At home, sleep wouldn't come. Keanu sank into his worn leather armchair, clutching a book of Rumi's poetry, his refuge in restless moments. Tonight, though, the words failed to soothe him. Lila's situation gnawed at his conscience. Unable to stay still, he decided to return to the center. He couldn't heal her, but he could ensure she didn't face the darkness alone. The clock struck midnight as he set out. Miss Mary greeted him with quiet surprise when he arrived, but led him to Lila's room without a word. The girl lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her small frame dwarfed by the bed. "Hey, Lila," Keanu said gently, pulling a chair close. "Can't sleep?" She turned to him, eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I don't want to die." Her confession struck him hard. Keanu pulled his poetry book from his pocket, holding it up. "Want to hear a story? Not a fairy tale. Just about the strength we all have inside." Lila nodded faintly. He read aloud, his voice steady and warm, reciting verses about courage and light-piercing shadow. She listened, her breathing easing, though a flicker of fear remained in her gaze. The words wrapped around them like a fragile shield. Pausing, he met her eyes. "Do you ever get scared?" she asked, voice trembling. "Ever think you wouldn't make it?" Keanu thought of his own battles, losses that once broke him. "Yes," he admitted. "But I learned fear isn't the enemy. It's part of us. What matters is not letting it win." "You're stronger than you know, Lila." She managed a small smile. "You're like a real-life superhero." Keanu laughed softly. "No hero, just a guy trying to help. I promise I'll do my best for you." As Lila drifted to sleep, he stayed by her side, the book resting in his lap. The dim light softened her features, and he silently vowed to keep fighting for her. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but tonight, he'd given her a moment of peace. The next morning, Keanu arrived at the community center, a steaming coffee cup in hand. After a restless night, he'd reached out to old friends, contacts who might secure resources for Lila. Miss Mary, the center's caretaker, greeted him with a tired smile. "She's been asking for you since dawn," she said. Lila sat on a threadbare couch, clutching the roomy poetry book Keanu had given her. "Thank you for last night," she murmured, her voice faint but warmer. Keanu settled beside her. "No, thank you. You're showing me things I'd forgotten." Her quiet strength stirred something deep within him. The center buzzed with its usual chaos, but Keanu saw only decay. Chipped walls, sagging chairs. It needed more than patchwork fixes. "What do you like to do, Lila?" he asked, turning to her. Her eyes flickered with sudden life. "I want to paint, but we don't have supplies." Keanu filed that away, already planning. His phone vibrated, his manager nagging about a skipped meeting. "I'm tied up," he said curtly, ending the call. Hollywood could wait. Lila couldn't. For the first time in years, he felt purpose beyond the scripts and spotlights. By afternoon, Keanu returned with paints and papers stacked in his arms. Lila's grin lit up the dim room, the first real joy he'd seen in her. They spread out on the floor, sketching trees, stars, and simple houses. "What did you want to be as a kid?" she asked, her brush trembling in her fragile grip. Keanu thought back to his own rough youth. "A storyteller," he admitted, "but life had other plans." She laughed softly. "You still are. Your poems tell stories." Her words caught him off guard, a quiet truth he hadn't considered. As dusk crept in, Lila revealed her painting, a tiny lantern glowing against a dark backdrop. "That's me," she said proudly. "Small, but still here." Keanu's chest tightened. Her body might be frail, but her spirit outshone everyone he knew. "You're more than a lantern," he replied. "You're a beacon." He vowed silently to save her, and this crumbling center too. That night he stayed up late, drafting ideas. Art classes, repairs, a haven for kids like Lila. Sleep could wait, hope couldn't. Her light deserved to burn brighter. The next day, Keanu met a pediatric oncologist friend over coffee. He shared Lila's sparse medical file, desperation edging his voice. "It's not hopeless," the doctor said, scanning the pages, "but we need to act fast." Relief sparked in Keanu, a fragile, flickering thing. He arranged Lila's transfer to a top hospital, footing the bill himself. As they packed her few belongings, she gripped his hand. "Will it hurt?" she whispered. Kneeling to her level, he said, "Maybe a little, but you're tough, and I'm not going anywhere." Her tentative nods sealed his resolve. At the hospital, Lila faced a barrage of tests, Keanu a constant shadow at her side. Between visits, he brainstormed for the center. Renovations, a library, a space for healing dreams. One evening, as she dozed, he sketched his plans in her room. "What's that?" she mumbled, peeking at his notebook. "A place for lanterns to glow stronger," he said, smiling. She beamed, even through her exhaustion. His dual mission crystallized: help Lila recover and build a sanctuary for others. Each step forward fueled him, a quiet fire he hadn't felt in years. Lila's chemotherapy started soon after, a brutal ordeal she met with stoic grace. Keanu showed up daily, armed with books, paints, or just silence when words failed. One stormy afternoon, rain lashing the windows, she turned to him. "Why me? Why all this effort?" Her question hung heavy. He paused, then said, "You remind me there's light in the dark. That's worth everything." She nodded, as if his answer settled something within her. Outside, thunder roared, but inside, a fragile peace held, a bond forged in shared battles. Weeks later, Lila's health edged upward, a slow but steady climb. The doctors murmured cautious hope, and Keanu saw hints of the girl she might grow into. Meanwhile, the center's transformation began. He funded it discreetly: new paint, sturdy furniture, an art room, keeping the kids' routines intact. When the art space opened, Lila, still weak but eager, painted first, a mural of lanterns dotting a night sky. "This one's you," she said, pointing to the brightest. "For teaching me to shine." Keanu's eyes stung. Her light and his glowed stronger together. Weeks had passed since Lila started her treatment, and her progress was clear. When Keanu Reeves walked into the community center, her laughter rang out, blending with the other children's voices, a sound absent for too long. The art room buzzed with life, its walls covered in colorful paintings. Lila, though still frail, moved with purpose, setting out supplies. Keanu's heart lifted at the sight, but as he scanned the room, he noticed a boy by the door. Marcus, a tall teenager with a guarded stare. His arms were crossed, his presence a quiet challenge Keanu couldn't ignore. Marcus was a fixture at the center, a protector to the younger kids. At 15, he carried a weight beyond his years, his scowl a shield against outsiders. Keanu had seen him before, exchanging only nods. Today, Marcus watched the bustling art room with suspicion. Keanu understood that look, distrust, earned through hard experience. Winning him over would take time, but Keanu was patient. He knew trust couldn't be forced. It had to grow naturally. With a thoughtful nod, he decided to find a way to reach Marcus and the other kids together. An idea struck Keanu, a group project to unite them. He pitched it to Ms. Mary, a mural for the common area where every child could contribute. "It'll show them they're part of something," he said, his voice earnest. Ms. Mary beamed. "Perfect, Keanu. They'll love it." They gathered paint and brushes, picking a blank wall. Excitement spread fast. Kids brainstormed ideas, from stars to animals. Even Lila grinned, eager to start. Marcus, though, stayed back, his expression skeptical. Keanu didn't push. He'd let the project speak for itself, hoping it would draw Marcus in. The mural began with a flurry of activity. Keanu knelt beside the kids, showing them how to mix colors and wield brushes. Lila painted a bold sun, her strokes confident. Others added flowers and shapes, their chatter filling the air. Paint smeared on hands and clothes, but no one minded. Marcus lingered at the edge, watching silently. Keanu offered him a brush once, but Marcus shook his head. Still, Keanu kept going, his calm presence steady. He believed Marcus would join when he was ready. No rush, no pressure, just an open door. Halfway through, Lila approached Marcus, her smock a mess of color. "You should try it," she said softly. "It's fun, and Keanu's nice." Marcus shrugged. "What's the point?" Lila tilted her head. "It's about us, being together. He helped me feel less scared. Maybe he can help you." Marcus didn't reply, but his eyes flickered with thought. Lila returned to painting, leaving him to mull her words. Keanu watched from afar, sensing a shift. Sometimes it took a child's honesty to crack a wall adults couldn't breach. By late afternoon, the mural glowed with life, a patchwork of dreams in vivid hues. Keanu praised each effort, his voice warm. Then, as a small boy fumbled with his brush, Marcus stepped in. "Here," he muttered, taking over. His strokes were sure, revealing hidden talent. The room stilled, watching. Keanu smiled quietly. Progress. When they finished, Marcus studied his work, a mix of pride and uncertainty in his eyes. The other kids cheered, and for the first time, Marcus didn't pull away. A bridge had formed, fragile but real. Later, Keanu found Marcus by the mural alone. "You're good at this," Keanu said, leaning casually against the wall. Marcus shrugged. "It's just paint," Keanu chuckled. "It's more than that. It's you, showing up." Marcus glanced at him. "Why do you care? What do you get out of this?" Keanu's gaze softened. "I was like you, didn't trust anyone. But someone gave me a shot once. I'm paying it forward." Marcus frowned, searching Keanu's face. "People leave," he said quietly. "Not me," Keanu replied. "I'll stick around, you'll see." The sun dipped low, painting the room gold. Keanu, Lila, and Marcus stood before the mural, its colors a testament to their day. Lila gripped Keanu's hand, smiling. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Marcus nodded. "Yeah, it is." Keanu felt a quiet joy settle in him. Marcus wasn't fully won over yet, but the ice had thawed. Together they'd built something, not just a mural, but a fragile trust. Lila's strength, Marcus's reluctant steps forward. It all mattered. In this small corner of the world, they were a team. And that was enough. That night, Keanu rode his motorcycle home, the cool air whipping past. He thought of Marcus's guarded eyes, so like his own years ago. Breaking through that took time, but today was a start. Lila's recovery, the center's growth, it gave him purpose. Fame and films felt far away now, overshadowed by these quiet wins. The hum of the engine grounded him, a reminder of what he loved, simplicity, freedom, and moments like this. He'd keep showing up, for Lila, for Marcus, for them all. This was his place now. Months had slipped by since the storm of uncertainty first struck, and now a gentle calm had settled over the community. Lila's health had blossomed anew, her once frail frame now vibrant with energy. The community center, too, stood reborn, its faded exterior now splashed with colorful murals, its halls echoing with joy. Keanu Reeves leaned against the doorway of the art room, watching Lila and Marcus lead a group of children in a crafting session. Lila's laughter danced through the air, her spirit unshackled, while Marcus, no longer the guarded boy he'd been, guided the kids with quiet confidence. Keanu's heart swelled with pride. Today marked a milestone. Lila's recovery was official, and the center was hosting a grand celebration. The children had spent weeks preparing a surprise for Keanu, their way of honoring the man who'd stood by them. As he entered the main hall, a chorus of voices shouted, "Surprise!" A handmade banner stretched across the wall, proclaiming, "Forever grateful Keanu." Lila and Marcus stepped forward, presenting a small wrapped box. Keanu's eyes softened, caught off guard by the gesture. "You didn't need to do this," he said, voice rough with emotion. Lila beamed. "But we wanted to. You changed everything." Inside the box lay a wooden carving, a lighthouse standing tall amid swirling waves, its beam cutting through the dark. "This is you," Marcus explained, his tone steady. "You guided us when we were lost." Lila nodded, adding, "And we're the waves, stronger now because of you." Keanu crouched to meet their eyes, wrapping them in a warm embrace. "You've always had that strength," he murmured. "I just helped you find it." The room burst into cheers, the sound washing over him like a tide. To Keanu, this was more precious than any spotlight, pure, unfiltered connection. As the festivities tapered off, Keanu strolled with Lila and Marcus through the center's new courtyard, a space he'd helped create. Rows of flowers lined the paths, their colors vivid against the dusk. "I'm so proud of you too," he said, his voice carrying a quiet weight. "You've fought hard." Lila gripped his hand tightly. "We couldn't have done it without you." Marcus glanced up, his usual reserve giving way. "You stayed. That's what mattered." Keanu's smile was gentle but firm. "You're my family now. I'll always be here, one way or another." The promise lingered, unbreakable. That night, Keanu sat astride his motorcycle, the engine's low rumble a steady companion. The sky burned orange as the sun sank, casting long shadows over the center. He hadn't told anyone yet, but he'd secured its future, a trust fund to keep it running for decades. For Lila and Marcus, he'd arranged scholarships, doors to futures they'd once only dreamed of. Yet beyond the money, he'd given them faith, in themselves, in each other. As he pulled onto the road, the wind whipping past, he felt a rare peace. This wasn't goodbye. It was the start of something enduring. Inside, Lila and Marcus lingered by the mural they'd crafted long ago, a lighthouse surrounded by waves, painted in bold strokes. The colors seemed to glow in the dim light, a testament to their journey. "Think he'll visit soon?" Marcus asked, a flicker of worry in his voice. Lila shook her head, her smile certain. "He doesn't need to. He's part of us, steady and sure, and we're part of him." Marcus nodded, his doubts fading. Hand in hand, they walked back into the warmth of the center, ready for whatever lay ahead. The celebration had ended, but its echoes remained. Parents lingered, chatting about how the center had become a lifeline. Kids darted around, their energy uncontainable. Keanu's presence had sparked something, a ripple of hope that grew with every shared laugh, every small victory. Lila sat on a bench, sketching the lighthouse from memory, while Marcus helped a younger child tie a shoelace. They'd found their place, their purpose, and though Keanu was miles away by now, his light stayed with them, steady, unwavering, a beacon they'd carry forever. Far down the road, Keanu glanced back in his rearview mirror, the center a speck on the horizon. He didn't need to stay to know it would thrive. The kids, the community, they'd taken the torch and run with it. Lila's courage, Marcus's quiet strength, the collective spirit of everyone there. It was a legacy he hadn't planned but cherished deeply. With a final nod to the fading light, he turned forward, the open road calling. This chapter was closing, but the story, their story, would shine on, boundless and bright. In the quiet corners of Los Angeles, where the city's pulse softens to a whisper, Keanu Reeves and Lila cross paths. Not in a flash of fame, but in a moment glowing with raw, shared humanity. Their story isn't just about a Hollywood icon and a brave little girl. It's a testament to the invisible threads that tie us together. Kindness, resilience, and a flicker of hope that refuses to fade. What started as a chance encounter on a sun-drenched street grew into something bigger. A fight Lila didn't have to face alone. A reminder that even in our darkest hours, connection can light the way. Through her courage and his quiet compassion, they showed us that the smallest gestures can echo far beyond what we ever imagined. To you, our incredible viewers, thank you for stepping into this story with us, for letting it settle into your hearts, your time, your attention. It means more than words can say. If this story moved you, if it sparked a belief in the power of human goodness, hit that subscribe button. Join our tribe of storytellers and seekers, because this is only the start. Swing by tomorrow and every day after. We've got more waiting. Stories of everyday legends, love that beats the odds, and hope that rises from the ashes. Let's keep this flame alive, together.